everyone, and welcome back to Real English with Chloe and Leo.
Hello. Chloe, I have to admit, before we start recording today, I need to apologize to our listeners in advance.
Oh no. Why? What did you do?
I just spent the last 45 minutes trying to plan a trip for my family next weekend. My wife, my 2 kids, and my mother-in-law. And I have already lost my temper 3 times. I yelled at a suitcase, Chloe. A suitcase.
You yelled at an inanimate object?
It refused to close. It was a personal attack.
Well, listeners, it seems today's topic is very timely. Welcome to Real English with Chloe and Leo. I'm Chloe.
And I'm Leo. And today, we are talking about a universal challenge. How to plan a trip for the whole family.
Whether you're a parent, traveling with siblings, or even just organizing a big group of friends, planning family travel is a different beast compared to solo backpacking.
It is. And don't worry, we aren't just going to give you a list of do this and do that. We're going to give you the real English vocabulary you need to survive the planning process. From budgeting to itineraries, and of course, handling the inevitable meltdowns.
Not just the kids' meltdowns, but the adults too.
Too true. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. The first stage of planning any family trip. Stage 1, the decision.
So, Leo, when you decided to take this trip next weekend, who made the decision? Was it a democratic vote? Or was it a dictatorship?
Oh, it was a dictatorship disguised as a democracy. My wife said, let's go to the beach. I said, great, let's book it. But the problem is, in a family, you have to consider the logistics.
Logistics. That's a great word. In English, logistics refers to the complex coordination of people and resources. For a family trip, logistics means, how do we get there? What do we bring? Who sits next to who?
Exactly. So, step 1 of the decision. Choosing a destination.
There's a phrase I love, know your crowd. If you're traveling with toddlers, maybe a 4-hour flight to Japan isn't the best idea unless you're a glutton for punishment.
Glutton for punishment. That means someone who enjoys suffering, right? I think I am one. But seriously, when choosing a destination for a family, you have to balance 3 things. Let's list them for our listeners.
Great. Number 1, budget. Number 2, interests. Number 3, pace.
Let's break down budget first because that's where the fights usually start. In English, we have a great phrasal verb, to shell out.
To shell out means to pay a lot of money, usually unwillingly. I had to shell out $500 for plane tickets.
Don't remind me. When planning a family trip, you aren't just buying 1 ticket, you're buying 5. So you need to set a budget right away. If you don't, the costs will spiral out of control.
Spiral out of control to increase quickly and become difficult to manage. So, how do you avoid that? You crunch the numbers.
Crunch the numbers. I love that phrase. It means to calculate. You add up flights, accommodation, food, and this is the big one, buffer money.
Buffer money? What's that?
Buffer money is extra cash you keep in reserve for emergencies. Or, in my family's case, for the moment the kids see a giant stuffed animal at the airport gift shop and suddenly forget how to breathe unless they get it.
I'll die if I don't get this meltdown. Yes, that requires a buffer.
So, after you've crunched the numbers and you've V-stretched your budget, meaning you've tried to make your money go as far as possible, you move to stage 2.
Stage 2, getting there and sleeping there.
This is where the English vocabulary gets very specific. Let's start with transport. If you're flying, you have to deal with layovers.
A layover is a stop between flights. If you're traveling with kids, you want a direct flight. A direct flight means no stops. It might be more expensive, but in terms of sanity, it's worth every penny.
Sanity. Your mental health. Yes. Now, if you're like me, you're driving. So we have to talk about the road trip.
A classic. In English, when you prepare for a road trip, you have to map out your route. To map out means to plan in detail.
You map out your route, but you also have to plan 4 pit stops.
Pit stops. Those are short breaks for gas, food, or bathroom emergencies. With kids, a 4-hour drive often turns into a 6-hour drive because of pit stops.
Don't I know it? I have a phrase for you, Chloe. Are we there yet?
The universal question. Are we there yet? It's the sound of a parent's soul leaving their body.
Okay, so after transport, we have accommodation. Hotels, Airbnbs, or camping?
This is a huge debate. If you stay in a hotel, you get room service and housekeeping. But you often have to book connecting rooms if you have a big family.
Connecting rooms. That's when 2 rooms have a door inside that connects them. It's safer for kids.
Or you can go for a vacation rental. That's an apartment or house you rent. The big advantage here is having a kitchen.
Why is a kitchen such a big deal? Because eating out for every meal with a family is expensive and exhausting. If you have a kitchen, you can whip up breakfast easily.
Whip up to make quickly. I can whip up some pancakes. This also helps with picky eaters.
Picky eaters. Children who only eat chicken nuggets and plain pasta. If you don't have a kitchen, you're at the mercy of restaurant menus, which can cause a tantrum.
Tantrum, an outburst of anger. Usually from a child, but as we said, sometimes from the parents.
So, we've picked the place, we've booked the transport, we've sorted the house. Now we get to the part that made me yell at my suitcase.
Stage 3, packing. This is where dreams go to die.
It's true. Packing for yourself is easy. Packing for a family requires strategic planning.
First, you need a packing list. You can't just wing it.
Wing it to do something without planning. You cannot wing it with a family. If you forget something for yourself, it's fine. If you forget the baby's pacifier, the trip is over.
So, let's talk about carry-on-vis. Checked luggage.
Good distinction. Carry-on is the bag you take on the plane with you. Checked luggage goes in the hold of the plane.
For families, I always recommend packing a change of clothes in the carry-on. Because if the airline loses the checked luggage, which is when they misplace it, you don't want to be stuck in a foreign country with no underwear for the kids.
Solid advice. Now, let's go through the essentials. We have a word for when you pack too much. Overpack.
Overpack. Everyone does it. You pack just in case items. Just in case it rains. Just in case we go to a fancy dinner.
But there's a balance. You don't want to underpack it there. Underpacking means you don't bring enough. For a family trip, the biggest space wasters are diapers and snacks.
Oh, snacks. That's a whole category. In English, we call these travel snacks. You need things that are non-perishable, they won't go bad quickly.
Non-perishable, like granola bars, crackers, dried fruit. If you bring perishable items like yogurt, you risk a sticky disaster in your bag.
A sticky disaster. Ew. Okay, so physically packing the bag, there's a great verb, to cram.
To cram. It means to force something into a space that is too small. I tried to cram all the shoes into the suitcase.
And then you have to zip it up and hope it doesn't burst. Leo, you mentioned you yelled at your suitcase. Was it because you were cramming?
It was because of the weight limit. I packed everything, and then I put it on the scale. The scale said 28 kilograms. The airline limit is 23 kilograms.
Oh, the dreaded excess baggage fee?
Exactly. I had to pack everything. I had to take out the heavy books. I had to shift things around. It was a nightmare.
Well, for our listeners, here's a tip. Roll your clothes instead of folding them. It saves space and reduces wrinkles.
Rolling versus folding. Noted. I'll try that next time instead of just sitting on the suitcase to close it.
The classic sit on the suitcase method. So once the bags are packed barely, we move to stage 4, the itinerary.
The itinerary. This is the schedule of what you're actually going to do each day.
There are two types of travelers. Type A, the overscheduler.
The overscheduler. This is the person who plans every hour. 9 a.m. breakfast, 10 a.m. museum, 12 p.m. lunch, 1 p.m. walking tour.
And type B, the free spirit. Let's just see where the wind takes us.
For family travel, you actually need a third type, the strategic planner. You need a skeleton plan with a lot of breathing room.
A skeleton plan. That's a great term. It means you have the main bones of the plan, but you don't fill in every muscle and organ.
That's a slightly gross metaphor, but I'll allow it. Why do you need breathing room? Because kids crash.
Crash, meaning they suddenly get exhausted, or they hit a wall.
Hit a wall. Same meaning. One moment they're running around the castle ruins, the next moment they're lying on the ground refusing to move.
So, when building your itinerary, you need to factor in downtime.
Factor in to include something as an important part. You must factor in nap times, snack times, and staring at the ceiling in the hotel room time.
Also, you need to manage expectations. If you tell a 5-year-old, "We're going to Disneyland tomorrow," they will wake you up at 3 a.m. ready to go.
True. I use the phrase under-promise and over-deliver. Tell them we're going to see a castle. If there's also a playground nearby, they're thrilled.
That's a great tip. Now, when you're actually on the trip, you need to use a lot of phrasal verbs related to moving around.
Let's go through a few. You head out in the morning. We headed out at 9 a.m.
You stop off somewhere. We stopped off at a bakery to grab pastries.
You check into the hotel. We checked in around 3 p.m.
And at the end of the night, you turn in early because everyone is exhausted. We turned in at 8 p.m.
Now, what happens when things go wrong? Because with a family, things will go wrong. The restaurant is booked solid, meaning full, no tables.
Or the weather takes a turn. It starts raining during your beach day.
This is where the phrase go with the flow comes in. It means to adapt to circumstances. If you can't go with the flow, you're going to have a bad time.
Or you have to scramble. To scramble means to move quickly and clumsily to fix a problem. We had to scramble to find an indoor activity when it started pouring.
Scrambling is stressful, but it often makes the best stories later. Okay, we've covered planning, packing, and the itinerary. Now, we need to address the elephant in the room.
The elephant in the room, the big problem nobody wants to talk about. We're talking about stress.
Travel is stressful. Your routine is thrown off. Routine is your usual schedule. When you travel, the routine is thrown off, and people get cranky.
Let's talk about vocabulary for emotions. When a child is overwhelmed, they might have a meltdown, but adults have breakdowns.
Meltdown versus breakdown. A meltdown is loud and public. A breakdown is quiet, internal, often happening while you're staring into the hotel minibar.
How do you avoid the breakdown? You have to communicate and delegate.
Delegate. That's a key verb. It means to assign tasks to other people. A lot of parents, especially moms, try to do everything themselves. But if you're on a family trip, you need to share the load.
Share the load. Great phrase. One person handles the map, another handles the snacks, another handles the entertainment.
Entertainment. On a long flight or car ride, you need activities. You might hear parents say, "I'm trying to keep them occupied."
Keep them occupied to keep them busy so they don't get bored and start fighting. We use the phrase screen time a lot now. Giving kids an iPad for screen time is a common hack.
Hack a clever trick or solution. The iPad is a lifesaver for long flights.
But you also need low-tech options. Coloring books, travel games like I Spy.
I Spy is a classic English game. One person says, "I spy with my little eye," something beginning with B. And everyone guesses. It's a great way to pass the time.
Pass the time to make time go faster. All right, let's talk about the aftermath.
You come home. You're exhausted. You have laundry piled up to the ceiling. What's the first thing you do?
You crash. You sleep for 12 hours. Then you look back on the trip.
There's a phrase in English, we survived.
That's the family trip motto. We survived.
But usually, after the stress fades, you realize you made memories. You had quality time.
That's the whole point, right? You want to bond. To bond means to form a close connection.
Let's do a quick recap of the vocabulary we've used today for our learners. Chloe, can you list them out?
Absolutely. Let's run through them quickly. Logistics. The coordination of people and resources. To shell out. To pay a lot of money. To spiral out of control. To get worse quickly. Buffer money. Extra cash for emergencies. Pit stops. Short breaks during a drive. Picky eaters. People who only eat specific foods. To wing it. To do without planning. To cram. To pack tightly. Excess baggage fee. Extra charge for heavy luggage. To factor in. To include as an important element. To go with the flow. To adapt. To delegate. To assign tasks to others. To keep someone occupied. To keep them busy. To bond. To connect emotionally.
Those are fantastic. If you're planning a trip, try to use these words. It will make your English sound much more natural and fluent.
Okay, Leo. Let's end with a role play scenario. I want to hear how you're going to approach this weekend trip now that you've calmed down from your suitcase rage.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so Leo, the car is packed. We're about to leave. What's the game plan?
Okay. First, we are leewaying ourselves an hour. I'm telling my wife we're leaving at 8 a.m., but I've actually planned for 9 a.m.
Smart. Building in a buffer.
Exactly. Second, I have the cooler bag filled with non-perishable snacks and drinks. I am prepared for the I'm hungry complaint that will come 10 minutes into the drive.
Nice. And for the inevitable fighting in the back seat?
I have headphones. I've loaded a playlist off audiobooks. If they fight, I hand over the headphones and say, listen to this.
Hand over to give. Good. What about the weather forecast? It says it might rain.
I'm gonna go with the flow. If it rains, we'll check out the local aquarium instead of the beach. I've already looked up the opening hours.
Wow. You've actually thought ahead. You're not just winging it anymore.
No. I learned my lesson. I realized that if I set realistic expectations and I pack strategically, I actually enjoy the trip. I can actually bond with my kids instead of just being the angry driver.
That's the goal. It's called avocation for a reason, not a workcation.
Right. Well, wish me luck, everyone.
Good luck, Leo. And that's a wrap for today's episode. Planning a family trip is a challenge, but with the right English vocabulary and a little patience, you can handle it.
If you have any horror stories about family travel or any tips you want to share, leave them in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you cope.
Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next episode. We're planning one on how to order food in a fancy restaurant without sounding like a tourist.
Ooh, I need that one. I always just point at the menu.
Until next time. Thanks for watching Real English with Chloe and Leo.
Take care, everyone, and happy travels.